There is, curiously, a specter haunting YouTube. No, it's not communism. It's Asian YouTubers doing that voice over and over and over again. But in case you want me to summarize my thoughts on it, I don't think the accent is itself a problem. I think it can be, and I think it actually opens up a lot more questions than people generally discuss. Still don't like it.
Hello, Peter Chow here. How are you
Meet
doing?
Peter Chow. He's the brainchild of filmmaker Davin Tong and is a character that people probably don't remember based off his overall channel performance.
Oh, that 鬼佬, the white devil.
At the time, Peter Chow presented a somewhat different kind of content style to what seemed to be a somewhat sanitized rendition of content by other Asian YouTubers, the sorts you'd see in Community Channel, Kev Jumba, and Nigahiga. Apparently, the character was called a breath of fresh air by the Vancouver Sun, and Rice Paper magazine situated him in relation to someone like Joe Wong, who was known more for sharp immigrant humor rather than specifically Asian humor.
I am actually an American immigrant. And they say that America is a country of immigrants. So I have to ask you guys, please leave my country.
The juxtaposition between Tong and Wong is interesting because of how different and diverse the Asian comedy style in the early to mid 2000s are, and more notably, how questions over what necessarily constitutes, or perhaps should constitute, Asian comedy is extremely roped up in these questions about social identity. Joe Wong doesn't lean on just Asian jokes. He's employed them before, but his comedy revolves around recontextualizing the punchline. In comparison, Tong's character Peter Chow was abrasive, sexist, and racist, but his early uploads exuded a sense of kind of a realness.
Because then I tan, I look like a Negro.
See, Chow's character existed in a kind of commentary YouTube space, but the gimmick is that he's a shitty human being. But to demonstrate the realness of the character, Tong applies the accent. This is not his belief, but some other person out there named Peter Chow. Side note, there's something interesting about the second generation Asian Canadian, born and raised in Canada, employing self deprecating racial character comedy, while the first generation immigrant employs observational wordplay. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I thought it was an interesting note. Kind of happens a lot. The Asian accent on YouTube is oftentimes used by Asian content creators as a way to connect to a specific kind of cultural relationship. The idea of living under the thumb or in the proximity of a conservative, regressive, or overbearing family matrix, and uncouthness, which the creator themselves reject, but the characters that they espouse or embody do not.
All these 11 to 13-year-old girl, they say, Peter Chow, you're ugly. You're like a Mexican. You're like a native. Don't ever compare me to a native.
It seems for Peter Chow, the accent is critical. It completes the fresh off the boat FOB image. And no doubt about it, many Asians did like it. And when I was younger, I thought it was at least different, since it presented a different image of the Asian character, aside from the staid, self-reinforcing, good at math model minority ideology that is often placed upon Asians in predominantly Anglo-Saxon cultures. And Chow did, in a really roundabout way, touch upon some sentiments that were very real in less politically correct Asian spaces. In a way, Chow's early material used comedy to somewhat humanize a particular kind of identity, that Asians just aren't demure calculator drones, but they could be brusque, impolite, and have very real toxic issues. But this video is also about the voice. So here's the question. Was the voice necessary?
What the hell? Stepped on branch.
Oh, that's the new
This
level.
is Stephen He. He's known as the emotional damage guy, and he has a variety of characters which employ the accent. However, unlike Chow, He's characters are not necessarily all bad people. A lot of times they are meant to refer to a different, specifically Asian person. This isn't that strange. The reasoning here is that on some level, this is observational humor, that any sting or meanness is the byproduct of real experiences, that there is some person out there who embodies those thoughts, because that person is someone I know, someone I care about. But He's situation is a little different because some of his comedy revolves around the Asian dad. But He's dad isn't Asian, nor even by He's own admission are those experiences necessarily his. He has said that his mom was very definitely Asian, and so it's possible that his frame of reference for what constitutes the Asian dad is influenced not only by outsiders, but also his mother.
No, Stephen didn't base this character on his own father, of course, because he's Irish. But his Asian mother character, well, that's a different story.
His authenticity, at least in the context of the Asian father skits, is thus borrowed. He never had those experiences, but many people simply assume he does because, well, he looks like he would. I want to stress that both of these situations focus on the accent as a site of absurdity. The accent sets out a different character, but ironically, it also brings up the question of why would this accent be necessary in the first place? If the cultural absurdity of the situation is so distinct and relatable, then why the voice? In fact, there are examples of how this can kind of be done. One of the first major viral hits on YouTube was from Eric Liang and his video Crazy Asian Mother from 2005.
What? B plus? B plus in English?
Liang's video is notable because it captures the tiger mom experience, but it doesn't lean on the accent. He does kind of fall into it at times, but it's much less noticeable than his contemporaries. So it's not like it's impossible. It's not like the Asian people can't relate to it. It's not like these experiences become inauthentic in the moment they lose the accent. You might say, well, hold on, the Liang video does use imperfect English to mark the character as ESL, which is a fair criticism. The problem happening here is that there are two general issues. One, deploying the accent sets up a situation that marks the character as an other, when there often isn't a need to. And two, it creates a get out of jail free card for people to laugh at the accent of the character specifically, not the character's antics. Now, many people do mention that many Asians do like it or find it funny, which I guess is fair. If they like it, it's not really my place to say they shouldn't. But that brings up a question. For Asians, what does the accent actually bring? For instance, when a group of Korean girls reacted to a few Stephen He videos, they didn't laugh because of the accent, but because of his use of physical comedy, and in the second video, the strong relatability, none of which was predicated on the way it was spoken.
처음에는 좀 그 게임 얘기하고 하니까 엥? 하면서 보다가 근데 약간 마지막 되니까 이 사람 얼굴만 봐도 조금 웃겨.
What I'm trying to get at here, perhaps poorly, is that the deployment of the accent does not seem to be that heavily registered by a lot of the Asian community, except when it's used in a very, very specific way, and that is to mark the content in relation to a predominantly white space. The accent is noticeable, or much more noticeable, when the interplay between white and non-white spaces actually intermerge, or when they connect together. Now, this brings me to another question. If the accent is a way to stake out a character, specifically a character recalling a type of Asian person, How far can or should it go? I mentioned Kev Jumba earlier, and while I said that he doesn't recall the Asian accent, he does directly employ it by using his dad, who, while is very funny, does still have the accent. Now, that said, Kev Jumba's dad's accent does seem deeply genuine, but he had been, nevertheless, staked out as an other, a generational gap in which the people witnessing the video are not other accented parents, but the kids of those parents who see this kind of goofy behavior reflected in their own parents. These experiences are often sold as Asian experiences in a kind of a gatekeepy way, but Asian experiences are incredibly different. And the problem is this question of authenticity connects us to other elements of Asian culture.